You're wondering what the best enduro and adventure bikes of 2025 are. Well, if you care even a little bit about our opinion, we actually put it to a vote. 10 of us rated all the bikes across 5 different categories. Welcome to the 1000 PS Top Awards 2025. Hey everyone, what's up? So what are these top awards? We've been doing this for, I think, 2 years now, because at some point we realized we just get so many messages every day, literally dozens, if not hundreds, people asking, hey, I'm looking for a bike in this segment, this displacement class, this performance range, which one's the best? So we decided to make it official. We had 10 jurors: Wolf, No Pain, Horvath, Emily, Pokey, Martin Bauer, Arlo, Philip, Nasty, Niels, and me. Everyone voted independently, no discussions, no group talk, just each of us ranking our top 14 bikes. Then we averaged all the rankings and that gave us the final list. Alright, enough intro talk, let's jump right into the first segment. And that is the affordable entry-level travel enduros. Here's how we defined this class. Maximum price, 10,000 euros. Yeah, I know, so it kind of hurts to call 10,000 euros entry-level in 2025, but that's just where we're at right now, especially in the travel enduro segment. And power-wise, we limited it to a maximum of 75 horsepower. So not just A2 bikes, we've also included a few classics like the V-Strom 650, but most are within the A2 range. All right then, let's get to the ranking. We always start from the bottom, so at the end of our top 10 list for entry-level travel enduros, we've got a few exotic ones. For example, the Beta Alp 4.0. Now, some of you might say, wait, that's not even really a travel enduro, is it? Well, we took a slightly broader view of what counts as a travel enduro, including some dual sport bikes that aren't hardcore enduros, but also not pure street bikes either. They're kind of in between, capable of long distance rides, but still light and fun off-road. So yeah, we decided to include it kind of casually. And honestly, the Beta Alp 4.0 totally deserves to be here. I actually rode it in Slovenia with Šaf, and it was just so much fun. That's why it made it into the top 10 now, even though it's not that well known. Next up, Moto Morini. Another bit of an outsider brand with their X-Cape. It's based on Kawasaki's 650 engine, but it's sold under the Italian Moto Morini label, which is now owned by a Chinese company. That combo of proven Japanese tech and pretty bold Italian design was enough to earn it a top 10 spot too. Then we start getting into the more familiar names. In 8th place, the Honda NX500, and right behind it, the KTM 390 Enduro R, a dual sport bike that's really shaking things up lately. These new dual sports are seriously interesting. I think a lot of travel enduro riders out there are starting to notice them. They kind of land in the middle of our ranking though, because, let's be honest, without a windshield, they're not ideal for long highway stretches. Still, they're light, capable, and super fun. But hey, it doesn't always have to be something brand new, right? In 6th place, we've got the Suzuki V-Strom 650 XT, a bike that's basically been around forever. Seriously, it feels like it's always been here, kind of a constant in the motorcycle world, and that's exactly what makes it so good. It's reliable, simple, and it just works. That's something we still appreciate, even though most of us test brand new bikes all the time. Sometimes it's nice to say, hey, it doesn't have to be the newest high-tech gadget. More old and proven can still mean awesome. And speaking of old school, 5th place goes to the Suzuki DRZ 400S. Now, yeah, the short gear ratio was a major criticism in our test and in your comments. It definitely lost a few points because of that, but still the fact that Suzuki keeps this dual sport platform alive, that something's actually happening again in that segment, that's exciting, and that shows in the points too. It's always crazy close in this list, by the way. For example, between 7th place, the KTM 390 Enduro R, and 5th place, the DRZ 400S, there's less than half a point difference. So yeah, these rankings are tight. Now, 4th place, just missing the podium, goes to the Honda CRF 300 Rally. This one's been on the market for a while now, and it's super popular, especially with people just getting into enduro and off-road riding. It doesn't have a ton of horsepower, which is why it didn't quite make it into the top 3. And it's a bit on the soft side, so if you're a heavier or taller rider, you'll hit its limits pretty quickly. But it's got such a kind, forgiving personality, kind of like a tractor. If you don't try to go full send all the time, it'll take you up any trail pretty much. It's a great gateway into the whole travel enduro world in general. And that makes it a perfect fit for this entry-level segment. Now we get to my personal favorite, although to be fair, I didn't decide this list alone. In third place, the Royal Enfield Himalayan 450 with the new bigger 452 cubic centimeter single-cylinder engine. I honestly think it's the best small travel enduro right now. The others definitely appreciated it too, just not quite enough to make it number one, probably because it doesn't have an adjustable suspension, which some others in this class already offer. And it's a little low and compact for taller riders, but personally, I absolutely love it. 100% my kind of bike. Now, second place, and this one's not bad either, the CF Moto 450 MT. Some of my colleagues even ranked it higher than the Himalayan. Why? Well, it's got an adjustable suspension, it's roomier, and even though it's got a smaller engine and similar power output, it feels more like a full-size travel enduro. It looks the part too, bigger, more serious adventure bike vibes, and that's something everyone on the panel noticed. And finally, first place in this category, the winner, the KTM 390 Adventure R. Now, the 390 Adventure has been around for a while, right? But we all agreed it never really reached its full potential before. It always felt more like a road-friendly all-rounder than a proper travel enduro. But hey, this is KTM we're talking about, and we expect more from them. And you guys out there have been saying the same thing for years. Give us a lightweight travel enduro with proper off-road suspension travel. Well, in 2025, KTM finally listened. And the new 390 Adventure R pretty much answers those prayers. That said, no bike is perfect. Even the KTM got some criticism, especially in my own test in Italy, which should be online soon, by the way. So subscribe if you don't want to miss it. The engine could use a bit more torque down low, and it doesn't have a ton of storage options for luggage. Not ideal for long distance touring. But overall, it's well under 180 kilos, totally capable of long rides, and it's got proper off-road suspension travel for its class. That was enough to earn it the top spot. We're moving on to the next category, the serious off-road machines, the Hardenduros. The class definition is pretty logical, but I'll say it anyway. Only models that come street legal from the factory and are clearly designed for off-road use. That said, we also included the sporty dual sport bikes like the KTM 690 Enduro R or the Husqvarna 701 Enduro. Now sure, these aren't pure hard enduros, totally clear. But because the dual sport segment is shrinking and there's no dedicated dual sport ranking, we let them slide in here a bit as well. The previous winner was the Husqvarna TE300, and as always, both in the market and in the hard enduro community, the first question that comes up is 4-stroke or 2-stroke? And it was exactly the same with us. There were the 4-stroke fans, the 2-stroke fans, and yeah, there was some fighting, heated debates, but in the end I think we came up with a representative ranking. It was super close again, as you can see from several ex equo spots. So let's start with 9th place. Here we have the biggest exotic, but it's actually tied with another hard enduro. The exotic is the KTM 450 Rally Factory Replica. At its core, it's really a hard enduro, just equipped with a big tank and wind protection for rally use. It's an awesome bike, unfortunately insanely expensive, but it's awesome enough that it made the top 10 of hard enduros, even though technically it's not a hard enduro. It's tied in points with the Gas EC300. Moving on to another tie, 7th place, ex aequo, is the Beta X-Trainer 300 and the Husqvarna TE300. And here the Beta is especially interesting. The whole ranking, as it usually is for hard enduros, is dominated by very sporty, competition-focused machines, often used by professionals and seen a lot in hard enduro championships. The X-Trainer 300, however, is deliberately tuned for accessibility. Even though it's not about maximum performance, it managed to sneak a little into our hearts, because it makes an otherwise very aggressive category of bikes more approachable. It's not as sharp or aggressive, yet it still offers enough power, performance and responsiveness to tackle harder trails, if you can handle it. And that's why the X-Trainer 300 lands in 7th place. Next, we move to the 4-stroke machines, which settle more in the middle of the ranking. We have the Gas EC350F, and in 5th place, the KTM 250 EXC-F. Then in 4th place, for example, the Husqvarna FE350. So, places 4, 5 and 6, 3 4-strokes, 2 350s and 1 250. That's why they ranked this far forward. Sure, there are also a ton of 450 cubic centimeter 4-strokes out there, but none of them made the top 10. Why? Well, yeah, they might offer a bit more long-distance capability, but at the same time, when things get technical, they're pretty powerful. And you have to be able to control a 450. The 250s and 350s are simply lighter and easier to handle, which is why they scored more points. In third place, we have the Beta RRX Pro 300 2-stroke, a proper competition bike. Second place goes to the KTM 300 EXC, another competition machine, not really a surprise. My guy Manuel Lettenbichler is absolutely dominating the Hardenduro World Championship right now. The 300 EXC has only been around a few years, I think since 2018 or so, so it's still pretty new, but it's dangerous in the best way. He's already won the Hardenduro World Championship twice on it, conquered the Erzberg 3 times and crossed the finish line first. Yeah, it's a really solid competition machine. A lot of pros ride it too, and this is why it's actually kind of surprising that the bike taking first place is a 4-stroke, the KTM 350 EXCF. What's interesting here is that unlike the 300 EXC, it didn't get a single first place vote in these subjective rankings, yet overall its scores were consistently just below the top mark across all 10 jurors, and that's enough to push it all the way to the top. So it's not anyone's absolute favorite, but it's basically everybody's darling. The next class, we're back to the adventure touring bikes, and this time it's the middleweight category, class definition up to 18,000 euros and between 70 and 110 horsepower. That's the range we're in. Last year's winner was the Triumph Tiger 900 Rally Pro, followed by the Suzuki V-Strom 800 DE, and in third place the CRF 1100L Africa Twin. Yes, the Africa Twin. So how does it look this year? At the end of the top 10, we have the newly updated Yamaha Tenere 700. Then in 9th place, the KTM 890 Adventure R. In 8th, the Ducati Desert X. And in 7th, the BMW F900 Gs. And what stands out about these 4 bikes is that they're all quite off-road oriented and very sporty adventure bikes. Because again, there were clear factions here. Some riders are more into off-roading, some prefer sporty performance. And others say, for me, adventure bikes are about comfort, touring on the road, lots of features and a relaxed riding style. And that's where this middleweight adventure class really spreads out, because there are bikes that lean heavily toward road use and come packed with upper class features, while others intentionally focus on minimalism and off-road capability. When we look further up the ranking, we move away from the purists. In 6th place, the Husqvarna Norden 901 Expedition. In 5th, the Suzuki V-Strom 800 DE, and in 4th, the Honda Africa Twin. So 2 of the 3 finalists from 2024. Why didn't they make it into the top 3 this time? Well, the Africa Twin remains a consistently popular bike, but the V-Strom 800 got some criticism from road-focused riders, mainly because in stock form it doesn't offer an especially good windscreen setup, and it's a bit heavier than comparable bikes in its class. But despite that extra weight, where you'd think it might be a disadvantage off-road, the engine is so lovely, the suspension response is great, and the fuel economy is excellent. That's why, paradoxically, it ended up impressing us off-road riders even more than the street riders. And another sign of its quality, it was the winner of the 2023 Alpenmasters. So you might think, why isn't it ranked higher? The reason is that the top 3 this year are simply tough to beat, especially in 2025. In 3rd place, the Aprilia Touareg 660. Why is it so far up this time? Aprilia has given the Touareg models a new engine mapping, and that has completely transformed the character of the motor from being very linear and a bit flat at the bottom end to being extremely punchy and lively. And that new character really won us over, especially among the off-road riders, earning it excellent scores across the board. So, 3rd place for the Touareg. In 2nd place, last year's winner, the Triumph Tiger 900 Rally Pro. Simply a fantastic motorcycle that bridges the gap between touring comfort on the road and off-road fun better than almost any other bike. That was the same reason it won last year. And this year, it takes 2nd place. Why? Because the newly released Ducati Multistrada V2S takes the top spot. It absolutely blew us away. The handling, the responsiveness of the semi-active suspension, the agility, the sportiness, it all sets new standards on the road. This is a bike that's not meant for off-road at all, but it still managed to collect so many top scores that it came out on top overall. It also won the Alpen Masters, which kind of confirms that we're not too far off with our judgment. The only real downside is, well, it's quite expensive. It's a Ducati after all. We also found some small details in the finish that could be better, and the old 950 Testa Stretta V2 engine in the previous model was maybe a bit more characterful, but also less easygoing. Especially at low revs in city traffic, it could be a bit annoying. The new V2 though, it can basically do everything, and that's why it's number one. Now we move on to the upper class of adventure touring bikes. Here everything goes, everything has to be included, so to speak. The class definition is quite simple, from 18,000 euros upwards. Often these bikes are in the displacement range above 1,000 cubic centimeters with power figures over 150 horsepower. But that wasn't a strict requirement from us, because there are motorcycles that cost just as much as the other high-end adventure bikes, come with similar equipment levels, but have slightly lower power, maybe only around 120 horsepower, and we allowed those too. Even within our usually very tight rankings, places 10 to 6 were extremely close together, just 0.23 points difference between 10th and 6th place. In 10th place we have the Moto Guzzi Stelvio S. Then tied in 8th place the Ducati Multistrada V4 Rally and the Triumph Tiger 1200 Rally Explorer. In 7th place the KTM 1290 Super Adventure R. And in 6th, the BMW R1300 GS Adventure. All of these bikes impress through their sheer mass, power and their flood of electronic features. The Stelvio S only has to concede a bit when it comes to horsepower. That's the main reason it ended up in 10th place. Otherwise, it offers a lot of comfort and tech features. And for those who don't necessarily need massive power, you get that unique Moto Guzzi charm. And of course, the classic transversely mounted V2 engine. Then we jump to 4th place, again a tie. The Ducati Multistrada V2S, our winner in the middleweight class, and the KTM 1290 Super Adventure S. The fact that the Ducati makes it this far, even in the upper class, since yes, it belongs there price-wise at over 18,000 euros, shows just how much this bike impressed us overall. Meanwhile, the KTM 1290 Super Adventure S, well, the 1390 models, unfortunately didn't make it to us due to the chaos within the KTM group. Hopefully by 2026 that'll change, but the 1290 has aged really well. This machine still excites us. That big V2 engine derived from the Super Duke, slightly tamed for the Super Adventure models, is just a phenomenal power plant. And electronically it has everything you could ask for. Truly a mighty adventure bike, and still one of the sportiest in this segment. Now the top 3 of the upper class adventure touring bikes. 3rd place, the Honda Africa Twin Adventure Sports. It impresses us because the Adventure Sports version has received a smaller front wheel, moving more toward a road-focused setup. It used to be the heavier of the 2 Africa Twin versions, which never made much sense to me, wanting to go off-road but buying the heavier, bulkier one with a bigger tank. I always preferred the standard Africa Twin. Apparently Honda eventually came to the same conclusion, and now the lineup feels much more balanced. The standard Africa Twin keeps the 21-inch front wheel for those who want to venture off-road, while the Adventure Sports now sits more planted on the road. It also comes standard with the semi-active suspension, which offers excellent comfort and smooth damping. A proper long-distance touring machine. In 2nd place, the BMW R1300 GS. Compared to last year's ranking, it has climbed 1 spot. Last year there were still some reservations. We were right in the middle of discussions about the early production issues, reliability concerns and recall campaigns. But this year those problems have largely been resolved. BMW has improved its quality control, and we acknowledge that giving it slightly better scores, which brought it to 2nd place. And in 1st place, the Ducati Multistrada V4S. It continues to impress us because for such a large adventure bike, it's incredibly agile. The V4 engine can be ridden both relaxed at low revs and aggressively at high revs. It really does everything. Its downsides, high fuel consumption and a high price tag. But if you want a diva and you want that performance package, you have to accept some compromises. And last but not least, we come to the category that personally interests me the most, adventure touring bikes for off-road use. The class definition here is quite vague. It says it's basically motorcycles that try to bridge the gap between on-road and off-road. That's it. So we've got dual sport bikes, larger displacement adventure bikes, smaller ones, everything's included. Last year the winners were first place BMW F900 GS, second place Aprilia Tuareg 660 and third Yamaha Tenere 700. So how does it look this year? At the end of the top 10, we have the Ducati Desert X Rally, a fantastic machine. It's got top quality components, rides insanely well, but it's also insanely expensive. 26,600 euros in Austria. Come on, for something you'll probably drop in the dirt on your first or second ride and then start crying about, I'd imagine. That's why we off-roaders said it's amazing, but really too exclusive for what it's supposed to be or wants to be. Then, surprisingly, the Tuareg 660 only comes in at 8th place. Why has it dropped so far when it was second last year? Well, in 2025 it got a sharper rally version added to the lineup, and that version basically stole its spot, got much better feedback and left the standard model behind. That doesn't mean the regular Tuareg 660 got worse, it's just that the rally version is simply better for off-roading. And it doesn't even cost much more. The regular Tuareg 660 is 13,500 euros in Austria, while the Rally is 16,000. But it already comes with a beefy skid plate, better suspension, a high front fender, and a great sounding SC Project exhaust. So the Rally is definitely the one to go for. And yes, it'll show up again in this ranking. After that, we have in 8th place the lightweight CF Moto 450 MT, why it's praised. I already mentioned in the entry-level adventure bike category. Then comes the Husqvarna Norden 901 Expedition. It's the only one I'd call a long-distance touring enduro in this off-road adventure top 10. Why? Because generally less weight is better off-road, but the Norden manages to place its center of gravity so cleverly with that low-mounted tank that it handles really well despite being relatively heavy. Plus that lively 890 twin engine delivers excellent traction, allowing both sporty riding and steady trail climbing. It's basically a Swiss Army knife. That's why it made it into the ranking at 7th place. 6th place, Yamaha Tenere 700, just behind the two bikes tied for 4th, the KTM 690 Enduro R, and here it comes, the Aprilia Tuareg 660 Rally. What's interesting here, the 690 Enduro R still made it up to 4th place. No surprise really, given how many of them you see out there. It's well respected in the off-road community. It usually needs some modifications though, because out of the box it's pretty Spartan. People often add small windscreens, adjust the suspension or swap the seat for more comfort. But honestly, it's impressive how that LC4 single cylinder from KTM has evolved. It can now cruise at highway speeds without issue and still hammer up rocky trails with loads of torque. It's incredibly versatile. The Yamaha Tenere 700, on the other hand, has slipped down a bit in the ranking. Why? First, because it now has a more capable sister model, which we'll get to soon. And second, because there was a lot of debate among us about how far Yamaha has drifted from the purest concept that made the Tenere what it is. It now has ride-by-wire for the first time, officially for emissions reasons, as Yamaha stated at the launch, but that also means it's not quite as direct in throttle response anymore. And we have some purists in the team, and they said, nah, it's not as nice as it used to be. Whether that's true or not, feel free to discuss it with us. Anyway, the Yamaha still made it to 6th place, and tied in 4th we've got the Tuareg 660 Rally, which takes all the strengths of the standard Tuareg. Great throttle response, good suspension, good ergonomics, and builds on them. It performed really well at our off-road test days this year and got a lot of praise. Now we come to the top 3. In 3rd place, a familiar face by now, the KTM 890 Adventure R, an absolute weapon when it comes to off-road riding. Sure, it's over 200 kilograms, but thanks to that low-slung fuel tank and KTM's expertise in tuning the suspension and electronics, it works brilliantly on loose terrain. There's hardly another big adventure bike that can be ridden so sportily off-road. 2nd place, the BMW F900 GS, ranked so high because everyone's just happy that BMW finally since 2024 has a truly sporty off-road oriented adventure bike in its lineup. Before, the 750 and 850 GS models were more relaxed touring machines. Now, the 900 GS can really go for it, provided you tick the right boxes in the configurator. In stock form, it's still a bit too tame, soft suspension, low handlebar, no off-road foot pegs, etc. But once you spec it right, it becomes a serious machine. The only real downside is its relatively small fuel tank, and that's why it scored slightly lower than the #1 bike. And that #1 is the Yamaha Tenere 700 Rally. It's new this year and narrowly took the win, just 0.08 points ahead of the BMW. It impressed us because the CP2 engine is still brilliant. Even with ride-by-wire, even if it's slightly less direct, it has an excellent higher quality KYB suspension. It looks serious with that high front fender, and we all loved the paint scheme. It also now comes with a few more basic electronic features, making it a bit more beginner-friendly. It even comes equipped with a skid plate right out of the box. So this is truly a machine you can pull straight from the crate and ride into the desert. All in all, those were the reasons why it earned so much praise from us, especially since its price at 13,700 euros remains relatively low compared to the bikes in second and third place. And with that, we've reached the end of the top awards for the enduro and adventure touring categories. Now, I'm really curious because rankings like these always open the door for endless discussions and opinions, and we're looking forward to that. Let's hear your thoughts in the comments. We're not presenting this as the truth. Like I said at the beginning, it's more of a thought starter, something to spark debate and collective reflection through our hive mind, but maybe you see it completely differently, and I'm excited to hear what you think.